Welcome everybody to this webinar in this season of webinars. We've been doing quite a lot over the past few months. So the title of this webinar is See What's on Your Storage, Discover Patterns and Take Control with DataIntell and Archiware P5. So this is David Fox from Archiware speaking, and with me is Olivier from DataIntell over in Canada. Hello, Olivier.
Hi everyone.
Thanks for joining us for the webinar. So we've got a really interesting product of Olivier's to show you, and there's an integration so it works with P5, hence it being included in this webinar. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start with the interesting stuff. We're really keen to get your questions. You don't know what questions you've got yet, but I'm sure you'll have some during the course of the presentation. So please type them in to the questions box that's part of the GoToWebinar control panel that you'll have on your screen. Plus, we'll record this webinar and we'll send you a link to the recording so you can watch it again if you really liked it, or you can share it with colleagues that maybe weren't able to attend. Now, do I still have control? Yeah, I do. So in this webinar, we're going to kind of split it into four. We're going to try and stick to 40 minutes. We're going to do sort of a 10-minute overview of the DataIntell product, which Olivier is going to show us in a sec. We're going to do a fairly brief overview of Archiware P5 because both products will be included in the live demo. So that's the meat of this presentation. So we'll do about 15 minutes of live demo, and then we'll allow 5 or 10 minutes at the end to go through your questions. So if you've got anything that occurs to you that's not clear, please ask, and then we'll cover that, and that's probably going to be interesting to everybody. So before we go into the next slide, we'll turn our cameras off because you now know what we look like. So let's just turn those off so you can concentrate on the slides. And I'm going to hand over to you, Olivier, to talk to us about, sorry, I'm just trying to advance the slide. Maybe you advance the slides because I'm not having much luck.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. So I'll start with an overview of DataIntell. So from our experience in the last couple of years, we started to see a lot of infrastructure with multiple storages from multiple vendors with data scattered in multiple locations, on-premise, in the cloud, and in archives. Every year, the amount of data generated by organization is growing, and usually 80% of this data is unstructured. If you manage 1 petabyte of data today, chances are that you will be managing 2 petabytes in 2 years. From our observation with different customers, it's too complex for organizations to manage all this data growth. They usually take the easiest way, which is always buy more storage instead of rethinking their internal workflows. DataIntell increases efficiency of storage use, reduces complexity, and offers continuous analytics and stats of your storage and data. Our innovative feature allows you to calculate how much a folder or a project costs you monthly, while providing you with option to reduce this expense. We have a mission to help organizations better understand all these questions, which have usually no answers. And let's look at some example. Where are a recent project? Does this project have data in the cloud? Do we have file in our archive for this project? Can we improve cost? Do we have a lot of duplicated file in the cloud that we're paying monthly? Do we keep cold data in our most expensive storage? What files are where? Do we have a way for to search for files scattered in all our data silos? What is our growth rate? Will we be able to ingest those 2 new projects next month? Could we find space for those 2 new projects? So the application was designed to help not only IT people, but also data owners and manager. And this is why all those questions could be answered by all those types of users. How DataIntell works, it's a web-based application installed on-prem. The application is secure and passive. It won't delete, rename, or move file in your infrastructure. But DataIntell will leverage other applications like Archiware P5 to do operations on files like archiving or restoring files. To be able to give you relevant information, the application reads metadata from files with our advanced crawling system. And to be able to do analytics on the storage, the application indexes information such as file name, size, modified date, or access date. To ingest information about cloud storage, Datalntell supports all S3 compatible storage, and they use the REST API from those cloud storage. The same goes for P5 indexes. We are using the REST API to get latest version of all the archive files. In order to give you trends and overview of all your storage over time, the software scans at least once a day. And with all this information, you can get a single pane of glass for the complete landscape of your storage. For the pricing and deployment, Datalntell is a subscription-based solution. It comes with support and updates, and there is no limitation on storage capacity or number of users. Usually what we do is a 30-day proof of concept, and it comes with a quick training of the solution. The installation usually takes less than an hour, and the configuration are minimal to get relevant information about your storage. So that was a quick overview of what we offer, and you will see later on with the demo what we're talking about. Now it's your turn, David, to give us a quick look at P5.
Thank you.
I'll give you the control.
Cheers. So yeah, I think the Datalntell will become very clear as soon as you see it. It's quite simple to appreciate the power of it once you start clicking around the web interface. So Datalntell integrates with us, Archiware. Some of you may be familiar with Archiware, some not, so I'll give you a little overview of the product. So Archiware breaks down into three main modules. That's P5 Backup, P5 Archive, P5 Synchronize. So the product is called P5, and it has these different modules, and you can build a P5 installation from the bits of it that you need. P5 Archive is our big focus for the media entertainment space, and I think also something of a focus for Datalntell, where companies create a lot of data very quickly. Storage has to be fast and is therefore expensive, and so some kind of workflow around having data in the right place when it needs to be available quickly for production and editing, but keeping it, but maybe not keeping it on the fastest storage over the lifespan of the data. So that's where we kind of come in with our philosophy, which provides both backup and archive. And I like to distinguish what's an archive versus a backup. So you all know what a backup is. It's a disaster recovery technique so that you can have a failure or some kind of act of God, disaster, and not lose data. And you may use cloud storage or you may use tape storage for your backup, but you will also need an archive. If you're in media and broadcast, you will almost certainly need an archive whereby you're able to move data into an archive, and this being data that you have somehow selected because it's cold, it's not being used, it's maybe a project from 12 months ago that you know you may need in the future, but you probably won't, but you need to keep it. So the best place for this kind of data is in the archive, and the best kind of storage for this data is on a cloud bucket or on LTO tape. Generally, those two are the main ones that our customers use. And unlike a backup where everything is backed up for safety, an archive needs the data selecting. You need to tell the archive what can now be moved into this offline storage, and this can be done directly with the P5 Archive product, and even better when combined with Datalntell, which provides so many different ways of slicing through your data. USB disks are not an archive. You probably already know this, but we come across many customers, people at trade shows often, that are shooting video and they own a lot of $50 USB disks, and they're not very happy with their workflow. It doesn't feel very safe, doesn't feel very reliable. It's not giving them redundancy. They're just trusting stuff onto a single disk and so on. Not a professional solution. We're here to give you the professional solution for archive. So a P5 archive workflow might look something like this, where you've got storage and more storage and more storage. You introduce a P5 server, and then you can basically move what we call cold data, which is data which hasn't been touched for a while, and you can move that to disk, LTO tape, or cloud storage. And specifically around those types of storage, we support any kind of disk. We support any kind of tape, from a single standalone drive on the desktop through to big tape libraries with multiple drives. We can leverage the hardware that you want to invest in to give you a huge amount of capacity with 18 terabytes on a single tape with LTO9. And we support all of the current relevant public cloud vendors, Amazon, Microsoft, Backblaze, Wasabi, and many, many others. Now, because P5 is archiving media files, once archived, we have our own database which captures thumbnails and proxies of all of those media files and gives you a searchable interface. So in addition to what we're going to see within the DataIntell UI, where we can also search, there is a secondary level of search which is always possible within P5 for anybody that's archiving to tape or cloud or disk. So you can search, you can see a list of files, you can see thumbnails, playable proxies, and we can even capture and allow you to search on metadata that we extract from the files. So with that quick overview of P5, I'm going to switch you back to Olivier to see the products in action. So Olivier is going to begin with a DataIntell overview, and then as we move into the P5, I'll show you a little bit of the P5 backend as well. And then we'll go to your questions. So let's have a look at the screens, Olivier.
Yeah. So the first thing you see when you come in DataIntell is the different section we have. We're split in 4 different sections. We have the dashboard, file management, projects, and search. The dashboard is an overview of all your storage, so we can look at what's changing over time in my different storage unit. Here we have a NAS, and we removed 27 terabytes in the last 48 days. We can get quick information about what is cold, which was one of my questions in my, I think, 4th slide. So here we have cold data 3 months, cold data 6 months, and cold data 9 months. And this is based on the last access date of all the files that we index in DataIntell. You also get an overview of all your on-premise storage, the capacity versus what is available. We get a total usage of our different cloud buckets that we have configured in the application. And we also see total capacity usage of our different Archiware P5 indexes that we have configured within DataIntell.
So you can have multiple P5 indexes within one installation or across multiple installations visible.
Exactly. So we have customers that have like 5 indexes, and you can search globally for all those 5 indexes in one place.
Yeah, or you might have like an East Coast office and a West Coast office and a London office, and have the P5 server with a tape library in each, and then you get an overview of the whole lot in a single place.
Yeah, exactly. We can do that as well. So the next section, the file management, is the equivalent of having every storage that you have mounted on your File Explorer on Windows or your Finder on the Mac. So you see all your data silos. So we have Archiware P5 index, we have some cloud storage, some NAS, and we can navigate as I would do in any File Explorer. I can click on this NAS here, which has 56 terabytes of available space, and we can see the different folders, and we can navigate the file structure. And here we have our current location at the top. We're able to give you in an instant the size and number of files this folder contains, because we index everything in the database, so it's faster than having to do that with your own file system. So pretty easy to have all your data source in one place, and we can navigate also within a P5 archive, or we can do the same for any S3 compatible storage files and folder. So one place, all your silos that you can navigate very easily. Mm-hmm. Let's jump to the project section. So in the file management section, we saw all our physical silos. In the project section, this is where you can configure virtual silos. So data that may be scattered in different location. It could be data from different NASs, from SANS, from cloud, or with even P5 index. And from there, we can have a view of the usage of that data for all those folders that are configured for that project. A project could be a project, a department, a team, or if you want to monitor all the cloud storage you're using, you can do that in one place, which is this section. Mm-hmm. Currently, this project is using almost 20 terabytes. We have a timeline showing us over time how much data we're using for that specific project. We can see changes over time here by just overing the timeline chart. We can get quick insights about this project. So in that project, we have 21 gigs of duplicate data, 14 terabytes of cold data. And below, we can see all the storage that has folder configure for that specific project. So this project contains folders from 3 NASs and from 1 S3 bucket. And if we expand, we can see the list of folders that are configured for that project. So here we have one folder in the NAS W, another here, and we have more analytics that we can look at from that specific section. Mm-hmm. So that's a quick overview of the project section.
And the costing is based on some figures that you're going to enter against what you figure is the cost of a piece of cloud storage, which is quite easy because there's a price list, or what you consider your on-premise network, SAN storage is costing you, and so on. Correct.
So yeah, when you configure a new storage, you configure pricing per terabytes per year. Mm-hmm. And this is internal, so you can define an internal costing and calculate your electricity, your support maintenance, and your if you have resource that you allocate for that specific storage. Or it could be used for charging back customers. So if you're hosting data for your customer, you could use that and calculate monthly expense. Yeah. So if this storage is NVMe, it might be more expensive than if this one is HDD drive. So that's where also you want to optimize your cost. You could move some of that data, if it's cold, to a less expensive storage.
Okay.
The last section, the search engine, is an easy way to find files. I can type keywords. It will retrieve file for me in all my data locations. I can also filter based on different metadata that we index in the application. So by last access date, I can go back and pick all the files that were last accessed before June 1st. And if I apply the filter is applied here, my results are updated. So results are split in 3 tabs. We have the first one, which are the files. The second one are the folders. And the third one is the analytics. The analytics is a way to visualize result of a search query based on metadata. So I got rid of the filter that I just applied before. And this is result of all my files. And I can tell you that currently I have 14 terabytes of data that was last accessed in 2021. That most of my data is on the NAS W. And we have a lot of MP4 and MOV within my infrastructure. We can even use the charts to filter result. So I can click here. It will apply a filter here, and all my chart will be updated, and I can scope down my result just by clicking on charts.
Yeah.
And again, files will be updated as well.
So you could do a search just for data that's been created within the past week or something like that to get and then look at the folders that match that to get an idea of which projects are active and so on.
Exactly. So I could pick creation date and pick August, and then just like that, I have a filter based on creation date, and I can look at all the files that were created.
Yeah.
So very easy to quickly filter result. Once I have a filter result, I can export that as CSV or send a link. So if I export that as CSV, I can open that in Excel, I can also apply tags to my files, and those tags are global, so any other user will be able to search with those tags. So very easy to have collaboration between users with the search engine.
Cool.
Let's look at the
one of the things I was thinking when you were looking at the file management is often people will mount some storage and then they'll do a Command I or a right-click properties on a folder, and then they have to go away for a while because the operating system is looking at every file just that one time for them to build a total. So that completely replaces having to do that, doesn't it?
Exactly. So we do that while we index. We calculate that while we index, so you don't have to wait to have the current capacity of a specific folder. We can even go further than that. We can analyze folder size over time.
Yeah.
Because we're indexing every day.
Yeah. So anybody that starts running this is going to just learn a huge amount about redundant, duplicated data, where they've got old projects that haven't been touched for a long time on maybe storage, which is too expensive to justify it, and so on. Just like the slide that you showed earlier, basically with the ticks on it. It enables a lot of things which you just can't do without a database sitting behind the storage.
Exactly. So you can, you can monitor duplicate and everything, and you have metadata here, and you can go back. So very useful to define workflow, I would say, because you're learning from your past usage, and give you a real example of that. Let's pick one volume here, the NASW. I'll open the analytics. So we saw analytics of a folder. We can do the same for a mount point or storage. And here I can show you that we have still 56 terabytes of free space. If I go below, I can see my current usage over time of that specific storage. And I can see that we did some cleanup on that specific mount point. But let's say we have a project come in, two projects coming in 2 months. And we know that each project will take 40 terabytes of data each. I can tell you that right now we don't have enough storage to ingest our project, but what can we do? We can look at insights. Here we have 18 terabytes of cold data 6 months in that specific storage unit. I can go granular and look at those files. So if I click on it, it will bring me to the search section. It will apply filter for me, and now I can see that I have 86,000 files, 18 terabytes. And with the P5 integration, what we can do is select all those files and send those files to the archive with the P5 archive plugin. So I click here, and we decide on what index we will put that data. And we will get information about configuration from P5. So we don't configure P5. This is based on what you have currently in your P5 configuration. So we look at archive plan. We have two right now. We have a Wasabi that will send data to Wasabi bucket, but it won't delete file after the archive. And we have another one that will delete files and folder once the archive is complete. I'll pick that one because I want to clean up some space. We select the P5 client, and just like that, I can tell you that Datalntell will tell P5 to archive 18 terabytes of data. If I click here, this will launch the job. It could take some time to do that, but with just a couple of clicks, we're able to free up some space.
Yep.
Once we come back here, probably the next day, this will be near zero. And we can still monitor storage, and if we're still missing some space or some capacity, we can export a report and go ask our boss to buy new storage. So it's also a tool to better plan purchase of storage or workflow based on what you have within your facility. So you have the proof that this will probably be zero, that you did everything you could to optimize this storage.
Yeah, yeah. Just thinking about the archive side of it, if a customer already is running P5 archive, they have been for years, they've got a big tape library with a big pile of tapes, or maybe a lot of archive data in the cloud. You come in with Dataintell and it will traverse through all of the archive indexes. So straight away you'll see all of that stuff that you've been archiving to tape for years. You'll
Exactly.
be able to, and you'll also have some of the metadata about when it was archived. So you could, work out what's the oldest archive data that you've got. Maybe you don't need it anymore. Maybe you can reuse that storage or whatever. But it gives you analytics on the archive side of things as well as disks.
Yeah, there's two ways to do that. We can go into file management and pick our archive index and navigate as you would do in P5, because there's the equivalent of P5 to navigate within the index. So let's go to a specific file. We have that file here, Rivard 98. If I click on it, I can tell you when it was backed up from the detailed panel.
Yeah.
We can tell you the location within the P5 archive.
Yeah.
And we even have another thing that we're doing is we are comparing data from the archive with data in other location. So if I click on the related files on premises, I can tell you that this file has copy in my NASW. There's 4 copy, in fact. So if I need that file, I don't need to restore that because we're still having a copy active.
You already have it. Yeah. And that's a small file, so it's not necessarily one that you'd worry about. But if you had a massive media file lots of times, then I guess you could go and delete some of the duplicates and just keep one copy online, or make a shortcut and so on.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do with the P5 integration is if I need to restore a project, because we still need to work on it, I can just navigate. And we have the restore the selected files from P5 and click on the restore button. And again, it will call P5 API and give you all the configuration that you have. So pick the client, and this will restore the file to its previous location. Yeah. So with just a click, we can do that. We can do that from file management or from a search result. If we want to pick all files from P5 indexes, I can select the file that I want to restore just like that.
Got it.
So very easy to restore files.
And of course, this is using the Archiware's API. So Dataintell could be running on a different host or the same host as Archiware P5, and it'll use the API to pass files that need archiving or pass files that need to be recovered.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was an overview, a quick overview of Datalntell with P5 integration.
Shall I just give a little bit of back-end talk around the P5 side of things then? So P5 also has a web interface that those of you that use it without Dataintell will know. And P5 is basically all of the configuration is available within P5 for doing backup and archive and replication and so on. And if we look in the, we've got to log back in. Sorry, we've left.
I'll log back in.
Thanks.
I'll do it.
Perfect. So yeah, if we look in so we can basically browse the indexes within this P5 installation of what has been archived. So if I go down into here, actually I've got the wrong P5 installation, haven't I? It's this one that I should be looking at. So let's see if this one's timed out as well. Yeah, thanks for.
I'll log in again.
Typing. Yep. Okay, so in this installation, we can browse also within P5 what's been archived by this P5 installation, and that's presented in P5 as a path. So here's some stuff that was archived from a user directory, Olivier's user directory, and then if we look in a particular folder here, we can see a specific MP4 file, and you'll see that Archiware Archive is able to extract both a thumbnail and a small proxy version of that MP4 file so that you can actually view and see media files that are maybe on tape or in the cloud directly within the P5 interface before you elect to restore them. So you can use P5 with Dataintell either purely from the Dataintell side, where you're sending files and recovering them, or insofar as recovering files, you can do that directly within P5 with the added bonus that you'll be able to see proxies and thumbnails of those files. What's also required?
Because from Datalntell, we do not show content, so we only show metadata. So that's very interesting to go back in P5 if you want to have preview and proxies from files, because Datalntell does not provide that kind of workflow.
So the two things exist in parallel. Everything that you archive into P5, P5 knows about because it's in P5's indexes. Everything that you've historically archived into P5 before you were using Dataintell, Dataintell knows about because it goes and interrogates those archive indexes. And then in this P5 installation here, I just quickly wanted to show you that you configure, P5 has this web interface which allows you to go configure your tape libraries, your tape drives, your cloud services. Then you'll create archive plans, and these are the two archive plans that were visible from within Dataintell. So we had one plan that doesn't delete, that leaves the files on the regular disk storage, and another one that does delete. And then within P5 you can drill into these configurations and you can choose what storage they're writing to. So you could have one archive plan that goes to cloud, one that goes to LTO tape, and you can also come in here and configure the creation of those previews and extraction of metadata and so on. So I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail around the P5 side of it. Just know that P5 has that wide variety of types of storage supported for archive, and at the same time, if you have a P5 installation, you could also use it to be doing backups of that storage infrastructure that you've got. So if you don't have a unified backup across all of your SAN and NAS storage that's sitting on your LAN, then you could also utilize the backup element of P5 to get a backup to tape or to cloud in addition to the archive piece. So I see a few questions coming in. If anybody's got anything that they're not clear about, please type it in to the box. Okay, is that good for you, Olivier, in terms of your demo?
Yes.
Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I think we cover most of it, yeah.
I mean, the way that you get access to the file systems is by either mounting them, isn't it, on the Dataintell host, or you can run an agent on a piece of storage and get access
exactly.
to that way.
We can mount the storage on the install on-prem server of Datalntell, or you can install remote agent that will scan and push data to your Datalntell API automatically. So there's two ways to do that, to ingest data. For P5 and cloud, it's REST API calls, so you don't need to mount anything.
Okay. So with that, we'll just finish our last couple of slides. If I just go full screen with that one. So that was a live demo. So you can go to archiware.com to grab a evaluation of P5, fully functional, just time limited. We have sales partners all over the world that you can talk to learn a little bit more. And on the Dataintell side, they're at dataintell.io, and again there's a trial evaluation version, and they're happy to set up proof of concept in your infrastructure. Like we said, Dataintell never touches the storage. You can even just provide read-only shares, so you can do an evaluation of Dataintell without risk of feeling like anything's getting changed as a result. You're just going to have Dataintell build a database that you can then browse using that web interface. So with that, let's go to your questions. We have a few here. So if I just go through them one by one. First of all, we have a question from Thomas. How do you find out which file is related to which project? I guess that's one for you, Olivier.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe you want to show that a little bit as well back in your tab.
I'll show that. It will be easier. So that's when you create a project. So when you create a project, you will set a name of your project, and you will just track a list of folders that are in different locations. So I can pick from my NAS here, I can pick footage folder here. I can go back, pick that footage folder here, and pick other folders from other data location. So here I have probably folder here, and from S3 bucket, those two folders. And just like that, we create a list of folders that we want to track. And we allocate a size, which is non-blocking, but will help people have notification based on data usage. So once you configure that, every time we scan, we update the information about those different folders and give you an overview of your project.
Did you say notifications as well, Olivier? Is it possible to receive warnings about things getting into states that you might want to be alarmed about?
We can configure notification based on the project space or volume space, and we can even define when we want to receive alert based on threshold.
Okay.
So if I'm a project manager, I want to receive all my project on Monday, I can define that, and I will receive all projects that are over, let's say, 90% of this allocated space. I'll receive an email telling me those 3 projects are almost at maximum capacity.
Cool. Okay. So they get grouped into one notification rather than it nagging you all week long.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for the question, Thomas. We have a question from Paul. Is it possible to scan multiple P5 indexes in DataIntell? Yeah, I think we mentioned that. So yeah, absolutely. So you can point DataIntell at one P5 installation that may have multiple indexes, or multiple P5 installations, each of which can have its own set of indexes, which is really powerful because we have customers that are running multiple P5 archive deployments in different locations. So you could have a DataIntell maybe running in the cloud on a Linux box in Amazon Web Services, somewhere like that, connecting down to your P5 servers on premise and giving you that view of everything in one single place. So,
and if you have multiple archive index, it will be filtered here. So we will have all, we could search for all our archive in one place.
Yeah, perfect. Answered that question. Dom asks, what is the P5 version supported by DataIntell? So I'm not sure about that. Which versions are you supporting?
Currently, we're supporting starting 7.0.7, so all the latest version of the solution, because there's some stuff that they did change to be supported with our application.
Yeah, because I think you looking in more detail at the metadata about the files in the index. So there was some stuff done in P5 deliberately to provide that level of insight from an external product. But of course, if you're running version 6 or version, maybe even version 5, there's an upgrade path, so you can pull your P5 through to version 7.0 quite easily, and then you can combine that with DataIntell. So that answers Dom's question. I'll delete that one. Question from Jeremy: is there a way to limit access to specific NAS or cloud storage? I guess that the storage which is visible within DataIntell is whatever you add it, but is there like are there different levels of user login? So one admin can add the storage, but like a regular user can't change the settings, they can just make use of it.
Yeah, we have a limitation of who can see what within the application. We have a group concept, so you could limit which storage unit a user can see or which project a user can see.
Yeah.
So I can define that probably one user will only see those 2 mount point.
Yes.
So once they log in the application, the only thing they see in all the sections are these 2 mount points. So from the dashboard to file management, even from search, they will only see those mount points. So if you have multiple remote location, you can tell that the users from, let's say, Montreal will only see shares from Montreal, and the users from London will only see data from London.
Yeah, so you can limit people so they only see what's useful and they're not overwhelmed by things which aren't relevant to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that answers your question, Jeremy. Last question for the time being, but you're welcome to put more in there. Alex, does the file crawler impact the storage performance while scanning? That's a good point, I guess, because traversing an entire file system does take some time, as we know, when we hit the Get Info button on a folder with a lot of files in it. So what sort of impact can we expect on a file system performance with Datalntell analyzing?
Because we're only reading metadata of the file, it does not affect the performance of the storage from our internal testing and from testing with current customer. We even have customers scanning every hours, and there's no impact on their storage usage, so no slowdown or anything while scanning.
They don't notice it. But at the same time, it's not necessary to have very frequent scans, is it? So you could have a daily one maybe at the early hours of the morning when people aren't perhaps working very much, so that you can feel secure that it's not going to be something that bothers you.
Yeah, most of the install are running at night, in fact.
Cool.
The scan is running at night.
Question just in from Stefan. Is the P5 metadata index which Datalntell uses only available in P5 or, for example, also in P5 synchronize? That's a good question. The P5 indexes are purely part of the archive, insofar as the ones that we're talking about that work with Datalntell. Those indexes, which are databases, they are available, they're part of P5 archive, so they're only used by the archive module. The P5 synchronize that you mentioned in the question is a data replication tool, so it doesn't use the indexes at all. So maybe you want to follow up, Stefan, with letting me know what it is that you're trying to do behind asking that question, and I'll say a little bit more about it. While you do that, Thomas has come back with a further question. If you have cold data, by which we mean data which has not been accessed for some period of time, which should go to archive? With Datalntell not touching data, how do you move the data? I think I can answer that one. So basically, we said that Datalntell doesn't touch your data. So when it's looking at the file systems and the archive indexes, it's purely interrogating, looking to see what's there, and building its index of all of those files and how big they are and the modification dates and so on. If you then get Datalntell to use Archiware to do archiving, then you're handing a bunch of files over to archive, P5 archive, and P5 is able to delete those files once they've been written to tape or cloud if you want it to. Once verification has been passed and a load of security checks are in place, P5 can do that deletion for you of things that you've archived. It's optional, and the deletion is being done by P5. It's not being done by Datalntell directly. It's being done indirectly through Datalntell requesting that P5 does something for it. Likewise for restoring. Restoring will have P5 archive put files back on a file system, but it's indirect from Datalntell. So I think that answers your question. If you've got cold data, which should go to archive, with Datalntell not touching data, how do you move? So yeah, that's it. Basically, Archiware P5 archive will do the moving for you. Yeah, I didn't hear any more from Stefan, so I assume that you're happy with the answers that you got so far. I see that it's 1:45. So yeah, Stefan's comes back and said yes, thanks. So I don't think we have any more questions. I think we just overran by 5 minutes. So with that, I'd like to say a big thanks to you, Olivier, and Datalntell for joining us for this webinar and showing us what you have so clearly. I think it's a really interesting product that I haven't seen anything really that offers the same things that you guys are doing. So thanks for that, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Goodbye, Olivier.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.